Mike has passed them out on this side. I'm sorry? Okay, thank you. That's really great. You know, by the way, Maida, I really appreciate it, but this is not something I love to eat. You know, I'm trying to stay away from stuff. Well, that's right. Thank you so much, but why not come over to the table?
That's what I do.
That's what you do, and I appreciate it. Now, it's what some reluctance I say this to you because, well, I'm just not going to eat it, so thank you. Yeah, don't be sorry. I appreciate you. You going tonight? So am I. Hey, hi, Dietz. Cleveland is really an amazing place. Oh, very good. So glad to get to know you a little bit. Good morning, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you all. I hope everybody has a little packet here. At the top it says supplements number 1 and 2, starting on page 3. I mean, pages 1 and 2 are just so obviously true, I didn't even bring them. That's a little joke. Are there more packets? Good. Let me thank Bob and Sue Curtis for sponsoring the bagels this morning. I think from now on I'll bring a chair and sit down for the applause. And it looks like this is wrong. Who picked up the bagels this morning? Okay, Joan. Thank you very much, Joan. I think, Mike, you guys wanted to say something?
After your prayer.
After the blessing for the study of Torah. Okay, let's do that. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We praise you, Lord our God, sovereign in the universe, who sanctifies us through God's commandments and joining upon us the obligation to immerse ourselves in words of Torah. Amen. Let me say one more thing before you. I just want to welcome Martina and Kurt. Martina is the daughter of Bill Morris. How many remember Bill Morris? Yeah. Of blessed memory. Bill was just one special guy. He used to sit right there in the first seat, and he would settle back. And not that everybody could see it, but every time I made a statement, not every time, Bill would go. And by the way, for that, I loved him. And he always used to come up to me, well, not always, but regularly, and he would say, you know, you always say when somebody asks a question that there are 3 possibilities as an answer. And he said to me, why always 3? Why couldn't it be 2? Why couldn't it be 4? So Bill had an extremely sharp intellect, and he was a dear guy. And when I saw Martina and Kurt last night, I just recalled this wonderful person who illuminated so much for us here in Torah study and really gave me a lot of joy in my life. So nice to see you and to meet Kurt. Okay, Mike. You.
Well, we're celebrating another year around the sun, Rabbi Klein.
Oh dear.
For you, right? So just a few words before we get started.
Go up by the microphone.
Oh, sure. Where is the
The
microphone?
mic is right there.
Okay, well, Mark Twain said that the only thing worse than not knowing how to read is knowing how to read and choosing not to do so. And I remember telling you at my conversion that I felt as though the only thing worse than not coming to Torah study is being invited to come to Torah study and choosing not to do so. I can't understand that. I don't know why the entire congregation is not here every Saturday with all of us, right? But the room would not, we're good, right? We just are so grateful for you, and I'm kind of hoping that the Saturdays you're not here, you're beginning to look at as just rain delays. Just rain delays. Skies are going to clear, right?
A baseball metaphor
A
from
baseball
you?
metaphor for you. You're truly the conduit between us and, no, you're the cleanup. You're the batter who cleans up, who makes sure, in other words, that we are all getting in the batter's box, trying to hit a single, a double, a third as we make our way home and work on our own covenant with God, right? You are the person who sees to it that we get in that batter's box. I think you are Michigan Orr's Reby with the most ribbies.
Oh, that's great.
That's it. And we love you for it. We love you for it. Happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, I'd like to, first of all, acknowledge Doris for organizing a celebration of Roger's birthday.
With a village.
Yeah, well, you can defer credit if you want to, but, so thank you, Doris. Secondly, and so we have lox here for everybody's noticed. We also have a cake over there that we will indulge in afterwards in honor of Roger's birthday. And I just wanted to say a couple of other things. One is, as many of you know, I'm quite new here, and I have felt very welcome coming here. And I think that's largely, Roger, due to you and the gracious way that you conduct these Torah studies and invite everyone to participate, regardless of how silly some of our comments are. And you never rob us of our dignity and invite us to continue to contribute, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And the second thing, I don't know, probably everybody in this room remembers All in the Family. The cake here is, it lacks an inscription that says happy birthday. So I just wanted to recall there was an episode of All in the Family. Archie, who I think was a longshoreman, was on strike. His union was on strike, and the strike finally ended, and he came home and said, "We have to celebrate. The strike's over." And Edith said, "I'll go get a cake." And so she went to the store and got a cake and brought it home, and they all gathered around the table, and Archie opened the box, and the cake said, "Happy Bar Mitzvah, Irving." And he looked at her, and she said that was the only cake they had. This cake actually has no inscription on it, but you can imagine "Happy Birthday, Roger," or "Happy Bar Mitzvah, Irving," if you like. But anyway, I hope everybody enjoys the celebration, and thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay. You're not done yet.
Not done yet.
Dear gosh. Oh, dear.
Okay, so Lynn and Michael have said just about everything I wanted to say, but Roger has taught us so much. He's taught us literature and history and tradition and text and baseball.
I'm over here.
You're over there. But mostly he's taught us to respect each other and to care about each other, the way he listens to every question. And he's got this thing, repeat the questions, but he really listens and he really responds to the questions, and he lets us to respond to each other's questions. And we really appreciate that. And you've brought us together. You brought us through this merger that was so hard for all of us. Some of us felt like strangers here, and you made us feel like family.
Thank you.
So, kol hakavod, toda rabah, thank you very much. And I wanted to quote the Kaddish de Rabbanan. Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Tamidei Hon v'al kol Tamidei Talmidei Hon. And in Debbie Friedman's immortal words, for our teachers and their students and the students of the students, we ask for peace and loving kindness. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I almost forgot the important part. We have a card for you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. And
Wow.
a gift.
Oh, and a gift. Wow.
So-
Oh, my goodness.
In my experience, clergy who have just discretionary funds use them in wonderful ways. And I know that Roger has done that. I've talked to people who have been the beneficiaries of his largesse. So we are contributing to that.
Oh, that's so nice of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is all Doris, all Doris. So anybody that hasn't signed the card, it's here.
Oh, gosh. Great, great. Gosh. You know, I'm just now thinking we only celebrate Rosh Hashanah for 2 days. But, gosh, I'm so touched. Am I the only one who's warm at this point? But thank you. I'm so moved by it. Last week, I did tune in for about 15, 20 minutes, and I had to go and prepare for some things later in the day. And my intention was to come back, which I did about 20 minutes later, and Jackie wrote to me and said they just sang happy birthday to you. And I missed it. But my gosh, I love the Kaddish de Rabbanan, teachers and students. You know, we teachers are students, and students are teachers. You know, there's reciprocity here. And a teacher who stands up here or anywhere parallel to it is blessed to have students like all of you. I mean, I don't think of you as my students, but my partners, colleagues. But to have a room every single week filled with people who want to come here and think about Torah and think about Torah together, and to ask ourselves, what does it mean to our lives and what do we mean to each other? What greater blessing is there? No, it's very true. I feel so extremely fortunate to be in this amazing place, congregation. As Vivian just said, the first couple of years of the merger have been rocky. Lots of issues. Why wouldn't there have been? Each congregation was more than 170 years old with deeply rooted traditions, great leaders, different ways of doing everything. And I felt at the beginning that it was going to be 18 months and then we were going to be sailing. But I was naive about that. It's taken us longer. And in retrospect, as I've just said, we certainly understand why. But I think we're nicely underway now, and I think that this gathering, not just today but always, was a premonition of the way in which we could work together and come together and make 1 + 1 = 3, which is what we've been saying. So I certainly have felt the last 3 or 4 weeks a change in the mood and some real momentum moving forward. So thanks for all of you being you and partners with me, and let's hope we can do it for many more years to come. Let's see, 120, how many more birthdays is that? Okay. I see somebody raise their hand. No, I didn't see that. Okay, well, I'm really touched. Can we stop now? Thank you so much. Okay, so this week we have a double portion, Acharei Mot and Kadoshim. Acharei Mot begins on chapter 16 of Leviticus. What I want to do is just look at one aspect of Acharei Mot, and then move to Kedoshim, move to chapter 19, which would be on anybody's list of the 5 most important parshiot in the Tanakh. I'm sure we would disagree about some of those things, but it certainly is crucial. So, looking at chapter 16 of the book of Leviticus, and what page? 180. And let's go back, let's hold 16 and go back to chapter 10. And hold chapter 10. Let's just look at 16. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Okay. So, chapter 16 of Leviticus. The Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron, who died when they drew too close to the presence of the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell your brother Aaron that he's not to come at will into the shrine behind the curtain in front of the cover that is upon the ark, lest he die." So, a reminiscence about an episode that we're going to look back at in chapter 10. After the reminiscence, Aaron gets to work. Back to 10, chapter 10. This is the episode. Now Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, each took his fire pan, put fire in it, and laid incense on it, and they offered before the Lord alien fire, which he had not enjoined upon them. Notice, by the way, that there are 2 reasons given for this calamity. In chapter 10, they brought an alien fire. In chapter 16, they drew too close. This can suggest several things. One, every event has multiple features. We could describe it in different ways. The second, or at least a second possibility, is the author doesn't fully know what the crime was. There's ambiguity there. Perhaps the author is trying to soften the severity of the problem by saying, well, there are multiple ways of understanding it. One can also think that there's an intensification of the problem by offering different interpretations, but at least the Torah is not unequivocal about what the problem was. So let's go back to the beginning of 10. Now Aaron's sons Nadab and Abihu each took his fire pan, put fire in it, and laid incense on it, and they offered before the Lord alien fire, which he had not enjoined upon them. And fire came forth from the Lord and consumed them. Thus they died at the instance of the Lord. Then the Lord said to Aaron, "This is what the Lord meant when he said, 'Through those near to me I show myself holy and gain glory before all the people.'" And Aaron was silent. That to me is one of the most powerful moments in the entire Torah. When you are called to serve God, you have a special privilege, a special obligation, and with special obligations come special punishments, problems, if you don't discharge it well. And I think that Aaron's silence indicates that at this moment, when he is probably deeply mourning for his sons, he gets that his vocation transcends that personal connection. I think this is a very harsh reality, but I think the Torah is insisting by Aaron's silence that in some ways he fully understands that vocation, at some moments, the higher the vocation, the more the responsibility. And the more the responsibility, the more you have to, in a way, make secondary. As harsh as it may sound, maybe you'll disagree with, this is my interpretation. And the Torah doesn't say it directly, and so you may disagree or have a different view of it. That vocation, when you are called, that's what vocation means. You're called. You know, I've said this before. When I was growing up, people were asking, what am I going to do? And I was in college, I don't know. And so I made some choices and discovered what I was going to do. How did that happen? I chose it. No, in some ways it chose me. And I think we're blessed if we have work, vocation, that feels like a calling. It doesn't need to be a clergy person. Somebody who embraces his or her work, his or her obligations to society, can come to feel, I was meant to do this. And we discover we were meant to do it in the doing. Yeah, this really works. This is good for, I'm flourishing. I'm not talking about myself at this moment, but any person. And at some point you come to make a transition between, I chose to do this, and I was chosen to do it, without, being highfalutin about it. And I think that this moment of Aaron represents the calling that the Torah reaches out to us with, that there is such a thing as vocation, and we can all experience it and do it. And by doing it, we are serving something larger than ourselves. We're the vehicles for something that outlasts us or is deeper than us. So this moment, and in Hebrew it's two words, Vayidom Aharon, and and Aaron was silent. And if we go back to 16, again there's a reiteration of this logic, but in an elaborated way. The Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons who died. When they drew close to the presence of the Lord said to Moses, tell your brother Aaron that he is not to come, and so on and so on. Rather than saying again Aaron was silent, Aaron's silence in chapter 10 is now elaborated on in chapter 16. He gets to work. He fulfills his obligation. And the Torah wants to tell us that somehow it's related to the death of his two sons and what that ultimately has to mean for him. And again, I think of this as harsh to Aaron. But for Aaron, at least here, maybe not everywhere, he is his vocation. I think it's one of the reasons for a uniform. You know, a uniform has the prefix UNI, unified. And a uniform, what does it do? It diminishes our personal identity and makes us part of a larger group. And whose vocation is being pursued when we wear the uniform? The group's. And we are submitting ourselves to the higher vocation that the group is called to do. We become servants of the group. And this is harsh because we don't ever lose our personal identity and our personal feelings. In a certain way, we're being asked to suppress them. Or maybe in a more complicated way, we're asked to devote our capacities to the purpose of the group. We remain individuals. But those capacities are not reflexive. I'm doing X for my benefit. I'm doing X for it's transitive and not reflexive. And that I think is the moment right here, the powerful moment about the crucial importance of vocation, especially in an enterprise like this. Ellen?
What is a foreign fire or a fire that's not supposed to be as part of the experience? Where do you
look, I mean, this is poetry. It's not, poetry tells us what can't be said. And what can't be described is the imponderable actions of God. That at this point, God was unhappy, so unhappy, that the poet had to express it as a strange fire, or a fire that consumed him. I don't think the question of exactly what did happen, one of my favorite poems is Keats's on first looking into Chapman's Homer, and he imagines an analogy to what it means to read a great book. Then felt I like some watcher of the skies when a new planet swims into his can. The discovery of a new planet. Really? Is that what happened? Is that what Keats did? He went to the library and oh my gosh, I think it was the planet Herschel. It was originally Herschel and then named Neptune. Herschel was the guy who discovered it. No, this is an attempt by a poet to capture the power of what it means to read. And instead of saying, boy, I love that book, I really love that book, he gives an image. And it's not to be taken literally, I don't think, because the poet is reaching for what fully can't be said. Arthur?
So I didn't notice this before, but the rabbis could have paired any to make the calendar work. So I think there's meaning in the fact that they paired Achremot and Kedoshim. And the question is, and as we read these verses, I palpably feel a connection between holiness and death. And in chapter 16, right after, the next thing after they die is they talk about the act of atonement through the death of goats. And I don't think there's a condemnation here. In other words, it doesn't say anywhere they did something terribly wrong. They were killed.
They brought an alien fire. They did something that was not normative.
It wasn't, but these are the heirs of Aaron.
Yes, yes.
And so one way to look at it is this is a consummation.
Yeah.
In the Akedah, we often interpret it as the moral of the Akedah as human sacrifice is forbidden. But it doesn't say that in the text. It
No.
doesn't say that
Right.
Abraham fulfilled the
Exactly.
Akedah that he would have sinned. So there seems to be in religion, and I'm distant from it, but from a distance it seems in the Christian religion too, there's a connection between death and holiness. And animal sacrifices contain that.
Yeah.
And so I'm just curious, you don't really talk about that much, but it seems very fun. H. Zerah to me is the intensity of the moment.
Yeah. Well, I could make a connection between vocation and death, and that is vocation is a matter of ultimate concern. Tillich's notion of ultimate concern. And if you blow it, then something really catastrophic might result, symbolized by death. So if the priests who have a unique, non-repeatable vocation, it's them or nobody, they're always standing on the precipice. Because if they get it wrong, then this is the ultimate. Then the community is. If the priests can't be intercessors in some way for the people, and if that vocation is an empty, it's filled, or if they're out carousing rather than helping the people, then they deserve to die. Maybe death is a symbol of the ultimacy of that vocation.
Beyond the accuracy, I'm thinking there's almost a message you need the ultimate intensity of death to pull out the greatest intensity of holiness.
That's what I'm suggesting.
That's necessary,
Right.
not an error.
So they both have the same digit. They're both X, but Aaron is plus X and death is minus X, not X. Not X equals death. Larry?
Yeah, I'm assuming that Aaron's sons knew that this was not the way to do it, and I'm just wondering, did they really know, and why did they do it?
Yeah. Isn't it a cautionary tale? I mean, I don't know why they did it, but I think at this moment, I mean, after all, Leviticus is the central book of the 5 books of Moses. Nothing happened. There are no episodes. There are no stories. They're just 2 little anecdotes. This is one of them. And there's another one later on, I think in chapter 24. Think about it. Stories happen in linear time. There's no linear time here. What we have is eternity. And we don't have it in the sense of a calendar. A calendar, I've said this many times, that a calendar takes linear time, and one of the implications of linear time is that if at this moment something crucial for the development of a community happens, here it is, it stays here in 1100 BCE, and time moves on, and we are increasingly remote from those pivotal events, what I call the pathos of history. And taking linear time and mapping it on a circle the way calendars do gives us a way of coming back to that moment every year. This is not that. This is not calendar, though there's a calendar in here on chapter 23, I think. This is going for eternity. This is how to understand in a certain framework, which may seem alien to us. But if we take the sacrifices and make them, we make them parts of the structure of holiness and our relation to holiness. This is not at any given time. When did Abraham live? Let's suppose there was an Abraham. We know, 1800 before the Common Era. When was Mount Sinai? Then. When did Leviticus happen? Never. Or no, better, always. Never is the partner of always. And so what happens in Leviticus, as foreign as it may seem, if one puts aside the particulars, holiness is possible, there is holiness, we have an obligation to connect ourselves to holiness, because holiness is also danger. That's this point. Well, what's Rudolf Otto's The Idea of the Holy, which is the wrong title for that book, because it's not an idea. In German, it's das Heilige, or die Heilige. I can't remember exactly what it is, but he says it's something, holiness draws us to it and makes us shrink back, because holiness is also dangerous. So there's a lot at stake in these particular chapters, as foreign to us as they might seem. Russell?
So, I think, I'd like to say that I think part of Aaron's silence is his own realization of his failure of leadership. Because 2 aspects to it, you gotta get the right people in the right seats on the bus, and maybe his sons were not the right people. And secondly, you have to train them properly, and maybe he didn't train them properly. And this contrasts to Moses and Joshua, where Joshua was the right person to next generation of leadership. He had the sword and the Torah, both.
Yeah. No, that's right. That's a good point. In Joshua chapter 1, both strap a Torah on your side and carry Torah. That's an interesting point. So Russell's comment is not about the structure of Aaron's obligation, which is in a sense has been my interpretation of it. If you're in that position, then there's a lot at stake. You're pointing to something more personal, Aaron as a father, and what the parent's obligation is to raise children to, how to finish that sentence, carry on the mandate of the family or do the good things. And maybe Aaron's silence is not only, I get it, that's my interpretation. I get what the priority is, but gee, maybe I failed. I like that. Because my interpretation, I think, is a part of the book of Leviticus' impersonal understanding of obligation. What Russell's comment does is it overlays a personal element. We may be servants, our vocation may make us servants, but we're also people. So I like that very, very much. Gee. I wonder if we went through the book of Leviticus, we would come to more of that. We very well might. I mean, I may not, because I'm sort of committed to this interpretation. Now you've opened up another possibility. Maya?
So I want to represent Margie Moskowitz, who usually points out that the Israelites took over many of the Egyptian things. So looking at from that point of view, maybe the Esh Zarah is something that is taken from Egyptians, and coming close to God is also something that the Egyptians did. So maybe Leviticus says, that's not the right way. You have to worship me the other way.
I love that. So what Maya's saying is we remind ourselves that there is an Egyptian background to a lot of these things. Moses' name in Egyptian is a suffix. So the pharaohs, Tutmosa, Achmosa, and so on. Aaron's name seems to be Egyptian, Pinchas. Pinchas is a 4-letter root word, and most Hebrew words have 3 root letters. So when you have a 4-letter root, so to speak, there's a suspicion, not a certitude, that maybe this is a loan word. So what Maya is suggesting is another dimension, that the people have lived in Egypt for 400 years. Could they not have syncretized a bit? Could they not have begun to borrow Egyptian customs? And perhaps they said, well, we can use that, but we can transform it into our own values. But not everything became transformed. Some things were just brought forward as foreignness. When the Torah says later, don't go back to Egypt, it says to Moses, don't take the people back to Egypt. That may mean literally take a trip back, but it may also mean don't bring Egypt into your culture. And when Solomon begins to become self-aggrandizing, that can be understood as bringing Egyptian culture into. So it's inevitable, we might say, that the Israelites brought some Egypt with them. And maybe that's part of the Esh Zarah, the foreign. So I like it. So we now have 3 interpretations. Vocation, something deeply personal, something cultural. All in those 2 words, or that short little unit. Jim, and then Mike.
We've gone over this for many years, this particular thing.
Yep.
And I'm thinking Aaron's silence was, the guy's in shock. And back to the timelessness of it, it is timeless. Because when you're in that situation, when someone you really care about is all of a sudden dead, no matter if they were sick a long time or it just happened, there's a hell of a lot of difference between the guy breathing and not.
Yeah.
And once that happens, there's many reactions. One of them shock, can't say anything. But then somehow you're trying to figure out why this happened.
Yeah.
And maybe it dawned on Aaron, we can't figure out how this happened or why it happened. It happened.
Yeah.
We're not in control of this thing. And that's a pretty hard realization when you come to it. When you suffer a horrible loss and you realize, you start to blame yourself and blame this and blame that. It doesn't work because you're not in charge. And I think that's his silence.
So now we have the Jim Russell interpretation, right? I mean, Jim has done the same thing Russell has done in a different way. You've talked about being a parent and wondering whether or not you've done the right thing. You've raised these, and you're talking about facing the moment of death. And I'm often struck by this. You know somebody is dying, but when they die, it's really a new shock, even though you know it's going to happen. That chasm between life and death leaves us stunned. So you're suggesting as well that Aaron had this existential moment when he comes to realize, oh my gosh, look at what has happened. Yeah.
But on top of that,
Yes.
it's out of the sequence of events. It's his children, it's not his parents.
Yeah. Oh, okay, very good. Even more shocking. Even more shocking. Mike, you had a comment?
Yeah, so, first of all, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we were in the chapter 10, and during the rain delay, and we were talking about different levels of holiness, and I had the sensation when we were reading that we suddenly find ourselves now in a different level of consciousness. And I think it's Jung said that that human beings occupy a field of time and space. And that we have in our field of time and space pairs of opposites. And one of the ways that we know we're in a higher level is those pairs of opposites unify. So when we start out in creation, we have this undifferentiated unity. And then we get light and dark. And then we get a human. And then we get male and female. And we keep going down into a place where we know that there's time. And I had the sense when they're at the tabernacle and they're gathering in the presence of God, now we're in a different plane. We're not in the field of time and space anymore. And you then brought that up again today. I had that sensation without realizing it. Time is suspended there. And not everybody can move back and forth. The suns are down in the field of time and space. They didn't make it up to the next level.
And does that moment all of time and space, unity, also project some depth quality about reality? Is it also metaphysical, so to speak? You see into rather than just seeing in. I like it. Steve.
One way of explaining Aaron's silence is fear. God has laid out all of these very precise instructions.
Yeah.
Aaron's supposed to follow it. His sons are supposed to follow it.
Yeah.
He sees his sons doing things that were not commanded. And he says, I'm regretting my life choices now because I'm now the head high priest, and any deviation, the result is death.
Yeah. So you've introduced another emotion into this picture, the fear that comes from non-obedience, or the peril that the higher the vocation, the more the peril. Sometimes, just to be personal about it, when I lead services, an idea pops into my head, a digression. And I often ask myself, should I go there? Last night I told a little joke at the end of the service. I was going to do it a little earlier, but I said, wait a minute, that's not the right way, that's not the right time. And I almost didn't do it at all, because vocation can be marred by a bad move, a wrong move. So there is a little bit of fear in pursuing one's vocation. I like that. Okay, so and Aaron was silent. How much time does one devote to 2 words? 6 minutes at most, 3 minutes a word. We managed to do 40 minutes of it. Look what we got out of it. Olga?
Thank you so much. I will be very short and very simple. For me, in this episode, the key word is alien. Where did they get this resource of fire? Getting from somewhere else is equivalent to be in a contact with someone who is not us, who could be our enemy, and be under influence of this group of those person. So in other words, Aaron maybe knew about, maybe he didn't, and he didn't give them the chance to get the resource to the right holy flame. And for me, we do not know who were those aliens who provide the sons with this grown fire.
Who brought what, the alien? You're talking about the alien.
We got this alien fire. We do not know. Alien. It's enough for us. So, and for me, for my simple understanding, it's prevention from bringing some chance for treachery, from being to bringing for holiest of holy something wrong, like an infection to kindergarten. So, plus, I believe everybody knowledge in archaeology and history, cult of the flame is most ancient in human history. Even prior to Neolithic Revolution, people were taking care about their own flame in their own space and taking flame from someone else meant a lot. So, and this is very, in my humble opinion, it's a very obvious and clear sample. Keep holiness, keep clearness, keep purity. Do not bring anything which can affect this absolutely holy moment. Thank you.
Well, thanks. That's an interesting comment. So you focused on, if I understood what you were saying fully, that there's something very, very problematic about bringing something alien
Absolutely.
into.
Marry women outside of
Yeah, right.
community. So we know history of Incas. So it's
Right,
about the same past, not of course the same.
right.
And eating the wrong food. What's that with pork?
Yeah.
Because alien.
No,
And they
I get it.
involved your house.
So Olga's making a point, obvious point, that there are boundaries and that we shouldn't go beyond the boundaries and bring something foreign. I don't know if I get it. I think that's part of the truth. Let me use an example of my own position. Let's take the example of a bear eating the mouse. The bear needs the mouse for nourishment. We've got to reach out for something beyond ourselves. So for the mouse, this is assimilation. For the bear, it's survival. So in this analogy, I think that we are the bear, and we are trying to find nourishment to sustain ourselves. But the analogy suggests we need sustenance from outside ourselves. Or to put it sociologically, no community can ever succeed over a long period of time by being insular. We need to reach out. I mean, that is what our tradition has done from time immemorial. We have reached out and taken valuable things from the outside and brought them in. My favorite example is Zionism. One of the interesting questions about Zionism is that the land of Israel has been on the mind of the Jewish people from the very beginning. God says to Abraham, go to the land that I will show you. And throughout the Middle Ages, Jews in their prayers, every single day in the Amidah, which is read 3 times a day, prayed for the return to the land of Israel and the reconnection with our judges and with our king and so on. Why then did not, given all of that intense focus on the land of Israel for thousands of years, why did Zionism not occur until the end of the 19th century? And the answer is the outside conditions were not yet there to be taken advantage of. The telegraph, the steamship, the railroad, Russian agrarianism, populism, different cultural currents in Eastern Europe, plus technological innovations that made movement to the land of Israel possible. So Zionism would not have existed. I mean, I think that's a QED. It didn't exist for thousands of years because the circumstances weren't right, among other things. When the outside circumstances were ready, then this millennial yearning for return was made possible. So, look, I mean, medieval poetry, Judah Halevi's poetry, would not have happened without some interaction between Jews and Muslims in terms of the power of poetry. That was borrowed. Jewish philosophy, so much of what we are begins to be alien. Now there's a very famous essay by Achad Ha'am, that's a pen name, means one of the people, who made a distinction. He wrote an essay called Imitation and Assimilation. And he points out there are 2 kinds of imitation. There's slavish imitation, which means I look outside beyond the walls of my own culture. I see some things that are very, very attractive to me, and I leave my community and imitate those things. That's assimilation. Assimilation is the arrow out. There's another kind of imitation, slavish, but what Chadam calls competitive imitation, which is the arrow out in order to bring what is outside back in to turn it to our own purposes. That is Zionism. That is medieval poetry. So imitation, going to something alien, is not inevitably a bad thing. It doesn't inevitably lead to assimilation, because there are resources out there that we can take in and turn to our own purposes. So the alien fire, here, of course, the alien fire is a bad thing. But I think this is just an example of how to understand it in this context, because the alien fire can be domesticated. And that is what we have done over and over and over again. In a way, that's how cultures flourish, by reaching out beyond themselves. All right, let's turn to chapter 19. Famous chapter. What I'd like to do is read it, make some comments about it, and then go to these sheets. I'm just going to begin by a comment or two from Robert Alter in his commentary on the Torah. So he says here, on the phrase from verse 2 is, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." He says here, although the idea that the people of Israel is to make itself holy by emulating God's intrinsic holiness even though that idea, he says, is not unique to this group of texts in Leviticus, its enunciation, this is why I'm reading this, its enunciation as the supreme rationale and didactic rallying point for God's commands is distinctive. I'm going to repeat the last part of the sentence. Its enunciation, you shall be holy for I, the Lord your God, am holy, as the supreme rationale. This is the rationale for doing the right thing. And didactic rallying point for God's commands is distinctive, and it is what has led scholars to designate the textual unit from chapter 17 through chapter 26 as the Holiness Code. So the Holiness Code, according to scholars of this sort of thing, say that the book of Leviticus is a priestly book. It has a priestly origin and orientation. There is a unit within the unit that may have had a separate existence and was incorporated into the larger text. This is a comment that goes under the category, the history of the text. Not the history in the text, but the history of the development of the text. When the sundry injunctions here conclude with the reiterated formula, I am the Lord, which we see over and over again here, the implication is I am the Lord your God who is holy. So what Alter is suggesting is that every time we read, so that the idea of holiness, that God is holy, and we are to think of holiness, think of it in terms of a ladder. And God is at the top of a very long ladder. And we are commanded to climb that ladder, to try to see how far up the ladder we can go. And therefore, when it says, I am the Lord, Alter wants to say, the implication is, I am the Lord your God who is holy. So over and over again, that injunction to emulate God is powerful. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm wondering whether I should go there. This is that moment. You know, of the rationalist tradition of ethical theory is that we should not be other-directed. We should not. Arthur and I just were talking about one of Plato's late dialogues, The Laws, where Plato is really very, very concerned about taking our mores and our customs from some other place. At the beginning of the Laws, the ancients. You know, the hallmark of Enlightenment rationalism, whose main exponent is Immanuel Kant, we've said this before, is dare to use your own reason. Don't be seduced by somebody else's view of what you ought to do. This is other-directedness. This is we get our rules from some other place. Of course, I'm not trying to diminish it, but it's to be distinguished from another way of trying to justify moral behavior. Not because God gave it, not because our ancestors gave it, not because it's customary, but because we have thought it through and come to see its great power, which is much more difficult, of course. But if reason is going to be determinative, we have to follow that. So it's just an example of, because this is quite other-directed, quite clearly. These rules are incumbent upon us because God gave them. And this chapter, as Alter pointing out, is the highest form of that. I am holy, therefore you shall be holy. Try to emulate my actions. Just one other comment on every man shall revere his mother and father, and my Sabbaths you shall keep, which is the next verse we're going to look at. And here's Alder's comment. It has been recognized since late antiquity that this section of laws, beginning with this verse, constitutes a kind of paraphrase and elaboration of the Ten Commandments, following a different order, using somewhat different turns of phrase, and introducing additional legal imperatives. So it's a paraphrase, it's a creative restatement. Abraham ibn Ezra, so a medieval sage, very important one, as usual, with an eye to compositional links, how one passage is related to another. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of that sentence. Abraham ibn Ezra, as usual, with an eye to compositional links, notes that the previous section, chapter 18, was focused on prohibited sexual relations that could lead to the expulsion of people from its land. The variegated laws of the present chapter, Ibn Ezra contends, came to remind Israel that there's a whole spectrum of commands which must be observed if it is to remain rooted in the land. You see what Ibn Ezra is pointing out, that in the chapter before, commands are connected to the consequences of obedience and disobedience leads to expulsion and exile. That since chapter 19 is right after 18, we can borrow something from 18 to understand 19. This is Ibn Ezra's notion of compositional links, that just as certain violations in 18 will lead to expulsion, so would certain violations of our chapter lead to expulsion, though it doesn't need to be said because we've already heard it just a chapter before and it still echoes in our mind. And so Ibn Ezra is pointing out that though throughout the Torah these dire consequences may not be articulated every time, that is what is always at stake. So the life on the land is always tenuous. If I don't honor my father and mother, exile is beginning to loom. Or I might put it this way, the ultimate punishment, losing our hold of the Holy Land. I think those are really great comments by Alter. So let's go to 19. Let's read it maybe to verse 16 or 17, and then we'll go to our sheets and just look at some commentators on it. So, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak to the whole Israelite community. Notice, don't just speak to the elders, speak to everyone. These are the laws for all of us. Speak to the whole Israelite community. It says so deliberately, Daber el kol adat, not just adat, not just the community, but kol adat, the whole community. And say to them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. You shall each revere his mother and father and keep my Sabbaths. I, the Lord, am your God. Okay? 2 rules plus a conclusion. Reverence and Sabbaths. And then I am the Lord. What's the connection between those 2 things? Verse 4, do not turn to idols or make molten gods for yourselves. I, the Lord, am your God. When you are sacrificing an offering of well-being to the Lord, notice, by the way, that the 10 Commandments deals with moral injunctions. Here, moral injunctions are accompanied by ritual injunctions, as if to suggest that morality and ritual have the same status. And we know that early in Reform Judaism, there was a kind of ongoing polemic against the significance of the ritual. And early Reform Judaism really diminished, minimized ritual, minimized Hebrew, Because the idea went that the moral injunctions are eternal. The ritual injunctions are contextual. Why are the ritual laws so important in traditional Judaism? Because we had to find ways in a hostile environment to maintain ourselves. And we maintained ourselves by creating our own rituals, which by definition separated us from the larger society. We did these things, they didn't. And this had two consequences. One, it kept us strong in adverse circumstances, and it kept the influence of the outside world at bay. Olga's notion about alien. So, this argument amounts to a suggestion that the reason for the ritual laws is historical and therefore contingent. Historical in the sense that it depended on circumstances. When those circumstances went away or were replaced by something else, the contingent laws are no longer necessary. When, in the late 18th century, early 19th century, the Jews were offered emancipation, the ability to then leave the ghetto and to join in the general society based on the ideals of the Enlightenment, reason, one humanity, tolerance, all those pillars of modernity. The idea is, well, since the function of the ritual was to separate us from an alien and antagonistic society, and that society has all of a sudden become friendly, why do we keep these rituals anymore? So that the moral law never goes away, but the ritual law is contingent upon. And I think that explains Reform Judaism's, even we might say utopianism, that this is a utopia. Let's go for it. Let's be part of this. And you know, I mean, obviously in the last half of the 19th century, Europe turned against the Jews with a new form of anti-Semitism, brand new form, racial anti-Semitism. Religious anti-Semitism, there is a way out from religious anti-Semitism. You convert. You can't convert your nature, your genetic makeup. Racial anti-Semitism means you're doomed. And Herzl's point, and there was another famous author, what's his name? Leon Pinsker. Leon Pinsker was an early essayist in the 1880s about Zionism. And the title of his essay is very telling. Auto-emancipation. Think of that, auto-emancipation, as really a banner which says the emancipation by European countries of the Jews was a false promise. It did not happen. If we're going to be emancipated, we have to emancipate ourselves. So that this whole idea about the ritual, you know, the reformers, early reformers, of course, were very idealistic. They didn't know what was going to ensue. And they thought, you know, we can create now a kind of ritual that is sort of a mirror of Protestant ritual, with a sermon, with prayers in the vernacular of the country, German and French and so on. And the return of ritual, I don't want to be monolithic about it, is partly a recognition that that promise was not kept and wouldn't be kept, and we have to return to something very authentic. There are other features too. But here, there is no normative distinction between the moral law and the ritual law. The normative distinction of the early reformers, moral law has this status, and the ritual law almost nothing, so we can get rid of much of it. Here, they're intertwined. The chapter isn't First, we're going to talk about the moral, then we're going to talk about the ritual. It's as if they were really one fabric, which I think is very interesting. So let's turn to verse 4 again. Do not turn to idols or make molten gods for yourselves. I'm the Lord your God. You remember now, altar would want to say, I, the Lord, am your God, who is holy. Needs to be reiterated, at least in our minds. When you sacrifice an offering of well-being to the Lord, sacrifice it so that it may be accepted on your behalf. It shall be eaten on the day you sacrifice it, or on the day following, but what is left by the third day must be consumed in fire. If it should be eaten on the third day, it is offensive. It will not be acceptable, and he who eats of it shall bear his guilt. For he has profaned what is sacred to the Lord, that person shall be cut off from his kin. Now this is a very, fraught idea of what in Hebrew is known as karet. What does it mean? We don't know. It certainly suggests not banishment by the community, not ostracism. Ostracism is based on the Greek word ostrakon, which means a shard of clay. In the ancient world, people, the Greek assembly, ancient Greek assembly, would meet periodically, and if you wanted to expel somebody, you wrote that person's name on that shard. And expulsion in the ancient Greek world was for 10 years. You didn't lose your citizenship or your property, but you could come back. Just as an aside, anybody know who Themistocles was? Themistocles was the guy who managed the final coup against the Persians at the Battle of Salamis in 480, where the Greeks defeated the Persians. Themistocles, a hero, was banished by the Greek assembly, of all things, for a subsequent set of crimes. Okay, let's go on. Verse 9. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not pick your vineyard bare or gather the fallen fruit of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I, the Lord, am your God. In other words, I mean this. This is a kind of example of the poor tax, that there's always the poor in the land, and they deserve to have sustenance and so on. So I command you to leave some of your, don't cut so the injunction turns out to be two things. In advance, don't cut all the way to the corners, but round off so there's stuff left. And that's in advance. Afterwards, don't go back and pick the things that have dropped. And the book of Ruth, when Ruth comes back, she goes down and follows the farmers of Boaz so that's an example of this. Of course, in that book, Ruth represents the yield. That's where the issue of famine and plenty is so important in the book of Ruth. She is plenty. Naomi comes back. She's lost her husband. She's lost her children. Don't call me Naomi, pleasant. Call me Mara, bitter, for I've lost everything. With Ruth at her side. That's a powerful moment at the end of chapter 1. She says, it's all famine for me. With little Ruth, who's going to save her and her family. No, it's not famine. By the way, at the end of chapter 1 of Ruth, the famine is over. And it's over in two ways, literally and Ruth. The end of the famine for Naomi is Ruth. To me, the greatest person in the Torah. I call her Abraham perfected. Let's go on. You shall not steal, you shall not deal deceitfully or falsely with one another. You shall not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I'm the Lord. You shall not defraud your fellow. Don't commit robbery. The wages of a laborer shall not remain with you until morning. That's a very powerful idea, isn't it? I used to do this myself when we came home after a night out. To the babysitter. I don't have the money now. Let me bring it to you in the morning. Little did I know that I was violating this law. Because if I forgot, let's say I forgot what this person is supposed to come and say to me, by the way, putting the burden on the babysitter. So it's it's a powerful idea. The wages of a laborer shall not remain with you until morning. The rights and dignity of everybody, no matter their social status, social and economic status. You shall not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. A very rich idea. Stumbling block can be understood literally. Blind person's coming down, I put a block there. No, there are a lot of ways for example, if a parent commits violence in the home, that's putting a stumbling block before the blind, the children, who are learning how to be a parent, how to be living with others. That's a good example of a stumbling block. You shall not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. You shall fear your God. I am the Lord. See, notice that it's not. Doesn't this make sense to you people? Here's how that might read. You shall not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. Doesn't that make sense? That's how we might. No, it's God's command. God is holy. And if you violate it, you're violating the Holy One. You shall not render an unfair decision. Do not favor the poor or show deference to the rich. The latter part of that is quite obvious. If there's going to be justice, don't show deference to the rich. But don't favor the poor? Shouldn't I try to balance the inequity by giving the poor in a judicial case a little more credence to their... No, not favoritism at all. Follow the law. Judge your kinsman fairly. Do not deal basely with your countrymen. Do not profit by the blood of your fellow. I am the Lord. You shall not hate your kinsfolk. Notice, by the way, 17 and 18 form a unit. 17 begins don't hate. 18 begins love. So I see this, just taking a cue from you-know-who, Maimonides, that this is a unit that deals with how to move from hate to love. Do not hate your kinsman in your heart. Reprove your kinsman, but incur no guilt because of him. And Maimonides has two different ways of incurring guilt. We'll get to that. Maybe not today. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge. Two things not to do. What's the difference? Against your countrymen. Love your fellow as yourself. I am the Lord. And according to Alter, who is holy? Remember, I'm holy. I'm at the top of the ladder. I'm asking you to climb it. Let's go quickly, to to our supplements here. So this is Rashi. You know who Rashi is, the most famous commentator of all northern France. I think Rashi dies in something like 1104. So he's commenting on everybody shall fear his father and his mother. So if we go back to the beginning here, verse 3, and I already pointed this out, you shall each revere his mother and his father. That's what Rashi's commenting on at the beginning. And keep my Sabbaths, I am the Lord your God. And Rashi's going to try to show the connection among these three units, Father, Mother, Sabbath, God. So here Rashi says, see where I am? Rashi, here Scripture mentions the mother before the father. Wow, I didn't notice that. Revere his mother and his father. The fifth commandment in the Ten Commandments puts father before mother. Say, boy, that's great that somebody noticed that change. Is there any significance there? No. Just another way of saying it. Oh, yes, there is. So here Scripture mentions the mother before the father because it is manifest to him, that him, capital H, to God, this is what God recognizes, that the child fears the father more than the mother. And therefore, by mentioning the mother first, Scripture stresses the duty of fearing her. In other words, just Rashi's capitalizing on psychology, believe it or not, accept it or not, that the father tends to be, maybe in more classical families, I don't know, that the father is more fearsome. You wait till your father comes home, and so on. So there is an inequality between, fear here can be understood in two ways. One, terror, punishment, or reverence. Okay, so this passage gives the priority of these values to the father. Therefore, in order to make the two parents equal in this regard, it puts the mother first. Okay, so go back to the beginning. Here Scripture mentions mother before the father because it's manifest to God that the child fears the father more than the mother, and therefore by mentioning the mother first, Scripture stresses the duty of fearing or revering her. In case of honoring one's parents, however, now he's referring back to the fifth commandment of the Ten Commandments. Scripture mentions the father before the mother because it is manifest to God that the child honors the mother more than the father because she endeavors to win him over by kindly words. So, therefore, mentioning the father first, Scripture emphasizes the duty of honoring him. That's pretty amazing, I think. It takes an imbalance and makes it balanced in terms of the two basic gestures through which we connect to our parents: honor and reverence. And let's think about those two things. I'm quoting Maimonides. Maimonides says that each represents a different vector. Honor means that I am to care for my parents. I'm to move toward them. Honor closes the gap between me and my parents, whereas reverence is stepping back. They are on a different level from me, and therefore I can't sit in my father's chair or speak in his voice. So these are not just two words picked out of the blue. These are two ways of relating in a hierarchical set of relationship. You can move toward, that's honor, or you can need, or you can step back recognizing the structural difference. And what Rashi is suggesting here is in both, the parents are to be understood in the same way. I think that's pretty revolutionary, I think. So therefore, beginning of a sentence, by mentioning the father first, Scripture emphasizes the duty of honoring him. And then Rashi is moving to the next topic in this one verse, the Sabbath. You see the verse? You shall each revere his mother and father and keep my Sabbaths. Is this just a matter of the author saying, let me just bring a couple of things together here? Why did you do it? I don't know. I thought maybe I'd bring Sabbath in here. Don't overthink this. Rashi is going to overthink it. And my Sabbath shall you keep. Scripture places the commandment of observing the Sabbath immediately after that of fearing one's father, in order to suggest the following. Although I admonish you regarding the fear due to your father, yet if he says to you, desecrate the Sabbath, I might say, Well, my gosh, that's my father, and I don't want to be punished. He says, desecrate the Sabbath. I guess I have to do it. He's the boss. If he says that, desecrate the Sabbath, don't listen to him. And the same is the case of any other commandments. This, it is evident, is the meaning, since Scripture adds, I, the Lord, am your God. That's how that verse ends. Both you and your father are equally bound to honor me. Do not therefore obey him if it results in making my words of no effect. Oh, and then Rashi goes on to talk about those two words. By the way, honor your father and your mother. I might assume that means if my father says do X, I should do X. Otherwise, I'm not honoring him. No, there's a higher order of obligation to which both your father, your parents have to be moral too. There's some famous cases in the Middle Ages where somebody goes to the rabbi and says, my father said do X. Should I do it? And the rabbi says, no. Doing X would be doing the wrong thing. Your father can't command you to do the wrong thing legitimately. What is, going back here, the end of a line, what is implied by the term mora? That is honor. No, that's fear. That one should not sit in his father's seat. Notice as an example of separation. I'm not on the level of my parent. That one should not sit in his father's seat, nor speak in his stead when he is expected to speak, nor contradict his words. And what is implied in the term kavod, honor? That the child gives the parents, moving toward, gives the parents to eat and drink, provides them with clothes and shoes, leads them into the room and out if they are infirm. And one commentator adds, if they're not able to pay their own way. I mean, let's be reasonable about this. You don't have to do these things if they can supply their own stuff. So there's something very structurally powerful here about the relationships within a family. Russell?
I think this echoes what we talked about in 16. Aaron faced that same issue of fealty to the family being surpassed by fealty to God.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah. So yeah, that's why Aaron is so upset, because the family is more important. What he has done to the...
No, that's why he's silent, because he realizes that it's more important to be, to honor
I see it.
God than to honor the family.
Aaron is having a moment of revelation here. This isn't really about me and my feeling to my... Yeah. Okay, that's good. It's an echo of this. I like it. Okay, so cake is on the way. So take a look at this. I mean, we might want to continue it at some point. There's so much rich stuff here. But, hey, another day. So are we going to come and have some cake? Yes. Okay, let's do it. Shabbat shalom.
one home.
No stone unturned.
Oh, I don't. I think there's another one of these that might be better.
Let me.
These aren't working. Do you have the other one?
Yeah.
One of these works better than the other.
All right.
Oh, you did it. Can you announce everybody?
Attention. Hello.
Here.
Just like to. All right. I'll just start singing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Roger. Happy birthday to you.
happy with that. Okay. Yeah, okay. hot dog vendor, where am I? And he said, honey, this is the Bronx. And I still remember it. And there was, he was so funny. So you're from the Bronx, all right. Is that where Yankee City? One. I never knew where it was. All right. Oh yeah, I think
I was gonna say we should give them a little bit of insight.
I don't think I have a problem. And now it's good. Yeah, they put it on the side. Except for the hot dog. Oh, you haven't done your hot dog? No. With, and then make it. Well, they know it, and they know it.
Very important meeting. Looks like a very important one.
And my birthday is the 17th.
Is the pancreatic cancer. To raise money for
Oh, yes, every year. Every year we should do that.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's a short project. Gathering of people. So what was the problem?
Tradition at the end of services.
Oh, we need tradition.
The joke.
Oh, the joke. Tradition. Yeah, yeah, I should have.
Nothing against it.
Just a girl.
No, we were just not.
Darcy with the G. So I can go. There are many Darcys of which I am not. I am a witness.
So for sitting, or no other. You know the joke. I'll tell you the joke.
You are?
So the congregations have controversies.
Of course. That's the joke. The punchline, she got to it right away.
And you hear people choose the punchline right on all the So they're having a controversy. Old, retired and this way we can do obeisance and not worry about
Yeah, but I think that it can be a bill stay looking at its potential.
I wonder whether, I was gonna tell it right after Rabbi Russo's sermon, because I was supposed to
My wife was
the next prayer. He did the next prayer. So,
But anyway,
this happens.
but it's a
So I had to